Good morning, folks. This morning we're going to be thinking about the words of the Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 19 and 20. He says, "Do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God? You're not your own. You were bought with a price. Therefore, honour God with your body." Paul, of course, is writing to the believers in Corinth, a city that was renowned for its gross immorality, a city in which all the sins of the body that one could ever think of were openly indulged. And that was the background from which these Christians had come. They had been used for years to indulging the body. They had been used to giving in to all the sensual desires, whether it was in feasting and eating and drinking, or whether it was in sexual immorality. That was how they lived. And Paul wants them to realize that now that they're believers, things are very different. The body that they have is actually a temple of the Holy Spirit. In other words, it is where God himself dwells. In the Old Testament, of course, the literal temple that was built in Jerusalem was a place where God came and dwelt among his people. In the New Testament, the temple of the Lord isn't bricks and mortar that are put up in Jerusalem or will be in the future. That's never been the teaching of the Bible. The temple of God is God's people, Christians. And God dwells in you, if you're a believer, by the Holy Spirit. You have received the Holy Spirit from God, and therefore you are God's dwelling place. And Paul goes on and says, you are not your own. You don't belong to yourself. You belong to someone else. You were bought with a price. And the picture here is of someone who belonged to someone else being bought by another person and a price having been paid. We were once under the complete control of Satan. God came along, freed us from that relationship that we stood in, and brought us instead into a relationship with him. We now belong to him, and the price that was paid was, as Peter reminds us, not silver and gold, but we were bought with the precious blood of Christ. And Paul then applies that. He says, therefore, because you have been bought with such a price, and because you do belong to God, and because you are God's temple and indwelt by the Holy Spirit, therefore honour God with your body. That's a very practical command. Honour God with your body. As Christians, we are to honour God with our bodies. And that means we're to look after our bodies. No Christian should be grossly overweight. Christians are to look after their bodies. They're not to go to excess in anything, whether it's drinking, eating, pleasure, whatever. We are to honour God with our bodies. We're not to destroy the body that God has given us. And whilst there's no command in the Bible, for example, to not to smoke, it is dishonouring to the body to do so, because effectively what we are doing is slowly but surely destroying that which God has given us. It would be wrong for Christians to continuously drink alcohol, not only because of the effect that that has on their body, but also because it's a terrible witness to others. And we're to think about that. As Christians, we're to make sure that we keep our bodies holy. And thus, we are not to engage in any sexual activity outside of marriage. And those of us who are married, we're not to engage in any sexual activity with anyone other than the person to whom we are married. We're to make sure that we watch what we say with our lips. We're to make sure that we guard our eyes so that we don't dishonour God through our eyes. All of this is part and parcel of honouring God with our body. And it's good to remember this verse. It's a tremendous help to us. Do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God? You're not your own. You were bought with a price. Therefore, honour God with your body. Our Christianity, brethren, is not merely about spiritual things. It's also about physical things. And that includes our body. So look after your body and use it to honour God. Have a good day.